The Rebel Capitalist Show. What you think the dollar endgame actually is? Because I hear you talking all the time about the dollar's going to crash, it's going lower, the foreigners are going to, treat their dollars like a hot potato and all these things. And I totally understand that, but what is the detail of how it actually plays out? I mean, do you think that we'll get to a point where they'll back a digital dollar, let's say, with gold? And if so, how would they have to reprice gold? How would that actually work logistically? Have you given that any thought?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I do think that ultimately all roads lead back to gold. Gold is the anchor of the monetary system. We've kind of drifted because, we haven't had that anchor for a while. But we're going to go back to it. I mean, history, is replete with examples of nations that have tried a fiat system and it's never succeeded. I mean, the difference between the most recent experiment is that it's worldwide. It's not just one nation trying it, it's the whole world that tried it.
Right.
And it really was the US that got everybody to do it. And so it's kind of our fault. But I think we're going to have a currency crisis, and I don't know of any way to reinstill confidence other than with real money. So I think that's where we're headed. A lot of people, too, they'll criticize me because they'll say, hey, Peter thinks the dollar's so bad, but, what about the euro? What about the yen? I mean, everybody is printing too much money. I mean, we're the cleanest dirty shirt in the hamper. Why are you so negative on the dollar, yet, you're not worried about the euro or you're not worried about the yen? I mean, I'm not saying that, there's no problems in these other countries. There are a lot of problems. We're talking about relative problems. Not, yes, I mean, everybody is doing bad. I mean, so, if I wasn't grading on a curve, everybody would get an F, right? But if you're going to put a curve in there, the U.S. is in much worse shape. All you have to do is look at the trade picture. Right. Who is the big trade debtor, right? Who's running these massive trade deficits? Well, it's America, right? So if America is running these deficits, we don't run the deficits with ourselves. Somebody is generating the surpluses.
Yeah, Japan and Europe.
Yeah, somebody is producing all the stuff that we're consuming, right? Somebody is lending all the money that we're borrowing, right? And so those countries that have been producing and under-consuming, they're going to fare better than the United States. America generates the biggest windfall from the current monetary system, right? We are the issuer of the reserve currency. So we get that privilege. We get to consume without producing. And, consuming without producing is a lot easier than producing without consuming. We don't have to deal with factories. We don't have to deal with pollution. We just get all this stuff that just shows up, and we just buy it all. And so if you believe that we're going to have a global reset, right? Well, what country is going to suffer the most? Well, the country that benefited the most from the old status quo. It's the U.S. It's the American standard of living that is going to suffer. See, because what's going to happen if we have to resolve these imbalances? So all of our trading partners, right, instead of producing stuff and sending it to America, they'll produce stuff and consume it themselves. So how are they worse off? They don't get as many dollars, but they get a lot more stuff. They get a lot more goods that can improve the quality of their lives, right? Because they have more consumer goods. On the other hand, what happens to America, right? We don't get all the goods coming in, but we can keep printing dollars. But what good are those dollars if we'd have nothing to buy? They were good when we can spend them on stuff made in China, but we can only spend them on stuff made here. We're not making any stuff. So it's America that benefited the most from this system. It's America that's going to suffer the most when it collapses. But also, you have to start thinking about what is the policy response going to be to a crash in the dollar, right? To massive inflation, big unemployment, this whole economic collapse. What is the U.S. government going to do? Well, if you look at what we've done in the past, you're not going to be very optimistic on what we're going to do in the future. It's going to be, oh my God, capitalism really sucks, and this proves it.
Right.
We need more government. We need, bigger government. We need to, more control, more regulation. And so that's a very dangerous, course that we're going to take. And so that's going to debase the dollar even more. And I keep looking at the fact that America has been really a drag on the global economy because the world has been required to support America. That's the price it's paid for the dollar as the reserve currency. The rest of the
Right.
world has to produce enough to sustain Americans who are not producing. So we're this giant burden that the world has to bear. They have to consume less so that we can consume more. They can't use all their savings for themselves. They've got to loan it to us, and we never pay it back. So the way I look at it, when this whole arrangement comes to an end, and the world is no longer burdened with the responsibility of carrying the U.S. on its back, then it's a boom. I mean, the only thing that you can maybe say that we've been providing to the world is defense, right? Because we don't bill everybody for their share of our defense budget.
Yeah.
But the question in my mind is America making the world safer with all this money, or is it making it less safe? Are we kind of like the mafia that, gets collection money to, from the storekeepers to protect them from us? That, hey, if you don't pay us this money, we're going to trash your store.
Right.
I mean, if America wasn't out there interfering in so many countries, maybe the world would be a safer place, and maybe we wouldn't need a big military. I don't know. I mean, but even if you X out, even if we build everybody for a reasonable share of our defense budget, it would pale in comparison to the subsidies that they're providing us for consumption.
Yeah, right.
And so the world is going to benefit, and America is going to suffer. And so on a relative basis, I do believe that every currency on the planet Earth is going to lose purchasing power in terms of gold, right? So I believe that gold will go up in terms of every currency. I just believe that it'll go up more in terms of dollars than it will in most other currencies.